This is Part 2, Episode 81. Wang Lin said, "Come in." Without any sound, the door opened and a boy wearing black entered the room. He was carrying a tray of fruits in his hands. After entering, he didn't even look at Wang Lin as he placed down the tray, and then turned to leave. Wang Lin said, "Wait a moment." The boy stopped, turned around, and looked at Wang Lin. Although the room was dim, he could still clearly make out what the boy looked like. The boy was very young, only about 13 or 14 years old. Without waiting for Wang Lin to ask, the boy opened his mouth and pointed at it. Inside his mouth he only had half of his tongue. Wang Lin was stunned and didn't speak. The boy gently smiled at Wang Lin before turning around and leaving, gently closing the door on his way out. For some reason, Wang Lin had a creepy feeling about this immortal cave. Looking at the fruits on the tray, he pondered for a bit and before going back to cultivating. His right hand was still on his bag of holding, so he would have time to resist in case any danger showed up. Time passed by, and in the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. In these 3 days, only the boy ever came to his room. On the morning of the second day, he went outside, but found that all of the servants were missing half of their tongues, making them unable to speak. In addition to this, most of the area was covered by powerful restrictions, which sealed them from going too far. Wang Lin wouldn't be able to break any of them in a short period of time. There was something strange about this place. Wang Lin pondered for a bit until he just gave up on thinking about this. He focused on cultivating to keep himself at the best condition for the fight against Red Butterfly. 10 days passed without any distractions. On this day, while he was cultivating, he suddenly opened his eyes and saw a middle-aged man sitting before him. The middle-aged man poured a cup of tea and looked at Wang Lin. This person was good-looking, but not extremely handsome. He didn't have a beard, but there was stubble on his face. His eyes were bright, but seemed to be somewhat covered in mist. Although he didn't speak, he emitted a sense of majesty. Wang Lin's eyes were calm. He wasn't surprised by the fact that this person was able to enter without him knowing. There were many people with cultivation levels higher than Wang Lin's here. He wasn't a boy who had just starting cultivating, so he wouldn't easily be shocked. The middle-aged man took a sip of tea and gently tapped the table with his finger. He didn't say a word. Wang Lin also pondered and didn't speak. The room was completely silent. This was a very scary kind of silence. A sense of pressure began to build with each tap of the middle-aged man's finger. If Wang Lin hadn't reached the soul formation stage, he wouldn't have been able to withstand this. Even if he was still at the early stage of soul formation, like he was before he entered the celestial realm, he would have had trouble. However, Wang Lin was very calm right now. After a very long time, the middle-aged man stood up, and without even looking at Wang Lin, left the room. He hadn't said a single word the entire time. After he left, Wang Lin stood up and walked over to where the middle-aged man previously was. There was some tea spilled on the table in the shape of 2 words. Lose, die. Wang Lin pondered a bit. He wiped the table with his hand and the words disappeared. He looked at the darkness outside the window and his eyes lit up. The middle-aged man must have been at least at the soul transformation stage. He was probably White Snow's master. The 2 words left by this person were very clear. If he loses the battle against Red Butterfly, the only road that would be left for him was death. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He then closed his eyes and began to cultivate. A few days later, the day of the big battle arrived. It was very lively around the giant altar in Suzaku. All of the cultivators that had arrived were eagerly awaiting this big battle. Suzaku had announced this battle between Wang Lin and Red Butterfly 10 years ago. This battle caught the eyes of a lot of cultivators. Although the 2 people battling were only at the soul formation stage, there was a huge difference in their social statuses. Red Butterfly was the genius of Shuiyu, and was the #1 genius in Suzaku. She was able to reach the late stage of soul formation in only 100 years, and was the #1 candidate to reach the ascendant stage. Sengmyo was of unknown origin, but was able to obtain a rain cauldron. Then he took an arm from Red Butterfly and instantly became famous. If that was just the case, it wouldn't have attracted so much attention, but this Sengmyo was only at the early stage of soul formation when he entered the celestial realm. He was able to fight against a late-stage soul formation cultivator when he was at the early stage and even took an arm from her. As a result, he became a legend. Now it was the second battle between the two, which attracted the attention of everyone. Red Butterfly was standing on the right side of the altar. She was wearing a blue, court dress with a dark purple flower embroidered on the edge of the dress. It was very simple and clean. Her hair flowed down like a waterfall with only a ribbon tying it together. However, the gentle breeze that would cause her empty sleeve to flutter put a blemish on the almost painting-like Red Butterfly. Red Butterfly's beauty was like her talent. It was filled with arrogance and ruthlessness. Around the perimeter of the altar were rings of white light with chairs placed on them. There were already many people sitting there, men and women, young and old. All of them were various messengers of different cultivation countries. Although there weren't 100 people, it was very close. Although there were almost 100 people, there wasn't any noise. These people sat on the outer ring. On the inner ring there were only 4 chairs, and there were 4 people sitting on them. These 4 people were all white-haired old men. At this moment, a white crane came from the distance. On the back of the crane stood a young man wearing white. He was standing up straight, his hair was tied with a purple ribbon, and although he looked average, he gave off a manly aura. Beside him stood a woman in purple. Her looks weren't at all inferior to Red Butterfly's. The crane arrived at the altar and let out a cry. The white-robed young man jumped off and landed on the altar. He was Wang Lin. Red Butterfly lowered her head to look at her empty sleeve before raising her head. Her eyes became cold. There was also a deep sense of hatred hidden in her eyes. As the heaven's chosen daughter, until she met Wang Lin, she had never lost. Not only was Wang Lin the first person to ever defeat her, he even took one of her arms. If Wang Lin had beaten her in a straight-up fight, although she would hate him, her hatred would not be this strong. But back then, Wang Lin acted when she was at her weakest and tried to destroy her Dao heart. In all these years, her cultivation level hadn't moved. This was all because of Wang Lin. Only by killing him could her Dao heart recover. Wang Lin's expression remained the same as he calmly looked at Red Butterfly. One of the old men sitting in the inner 4 chairs coldly looked at Wang Lin and Red Butterfly and said, "I'm the elder of Mount Suzaku, Gongsuanpa, and I'll be the judge for this fight." His right hand formed a seal and then pointed forth. A door of light suddenly appeared on the altar before them. "Go inside. That is where your battlefield will be." The old man closed his eyes and no longer spoke. Without a word, Red Butterfly walked into the door of light and disappeared. Wang Lin's eyes were calm as he carefully looked at the door of light and walked inside. After the both of them entered the door of light, it immediately expanded to cover the entire altar. Inside the door was a deserted mountain range. People could see what was going on through the door of light. After Wang Lin entered the door of light, he was able to detect that this door of light was a transfer array. Where he appeared was a deserted mountain range. The surroundings were completely quiet, and there was no light coming from the sky. An aura that would make you feel irritated filled the air. Giant and ancient oak trees grew everywhere. 10 feet away, a giant, red python was coldly staring at Wang Lin and sticking its tongue out. A shout came from the sky. "Seng Nyo!" Wang Lin flew into the sky to see a ray of red light charging toward him. Before she even arrived, a cold aura had already spread out. This cold aura condensed into small ice particles that gathered 100 feet away from Wang Lin into a giant ice sculpture. This giant ice sculpture was over 100 feet tall and was shaped like a person. Its face was expressionless as it swung its giant fist at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he backed away. A flash of red light appeared on the head of the ice sculpture, and Red Butterfly appeared. Her eyes were cold as she stared at Wang Lin and whispered something. A bright light appeared and turned into an ice rose before her. She made up her mind to not have a long fight with Seng Nyo. She would use the quickest method to kill this person. As the ice giant swung out its fist, Red Butterfly plucked a rose petal and sent it forth. The petal swayed back and forth like a boat on the rocky sea. Wang Lin snorted. He waved his right hand and the restriction flag appeared in his grasp. Restriction gas came out in the shape of dragons. They intertwined and fused into a giant fist that met the fist of the ice giant. Bang! The shock wave caused many of the trees below them to fall over. Even the python was knocked onto the ground. It was squirming due to the many wounds on its body. All of the wounds were caused by the vibrations of the shock wave. The huge impact caused the ice giant to take a step back. Cracks had appeared on his fist and pieces of ice were flying everywhere. Wang Lin's hand shook. The fist formed by the restriction shattered and as the vibrations reached the restriction flag, it caused cracks to appear on it. This is a treasure that my country of Shui Yu has been refining for 500 years, ice god. Seng Nyo, you will die for sure. Red Butterfly's eyes became even colder, as her hand moved and the floating rose petal suddenly began to change. Thin lines flew off the petal and formed a giant net that flew toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he waved the restriction flag, causing a screen of black fog to appear. Then he took out the celestial sword and swung at the net. The sword energy went through the black fog and landed on the flower petal. Bang! Cracks immediately appeared on the petal, but it didn't shatter. Countless threads from the flower petal covered the sky as it arrived before Wang Lin. Red Butterfly's eyes became even colder, as she plucked another flower petal. She threw it forward and formed a seal with left hand as it flew. Then she pointed at the petal, and it immediately grew many times larger. It was still heading toward Wang Lin. Red Butterfly didn't stop, but plucked another flower petal. She bit her tongue and spat out some blood. The blood fell on the petal, and 9 sword symbols made of blood appeared on the petal. 9 rays of sword energy appeared and shot toward Wang Lin. 3 flower petals. Seng Nyo, I want to see if you die or not. Red Butterfly slapped the ice giant under her. The ice giant let out a roar and swung its fist right behind the 9 rays of sword energy. For every step it took, there would be a giant hole left on the ground. Countless trees fell over and the vibrations caused many cracks to appear on the ground. This could be considered one of the most dangerous battles in Wang Lin's life. He didn't want to use the war chariot unless he had to. After all, this was Suzaku, there was bound to be many people watching. Exposing too many of his secrets wouldn't be good for him. Facing the net coming at him, Wang Lin let out a roar and swung the celestial sword like crazy, forcibly creating an opening in the net. Wang Lin quickly charged out from opening and opened his mouth to spit out a black ray of light. It quickly changed into a giant black stamp that slammed into the giant petal. The black stamp trembled before it was wrapped by the petal and turned into a puddle of black water. Wang Lin's face was pale. He used the moment the black stamp stopped the petal to teleport away. Just at this moment, the 9 rays of sword energy silently arrived. They moved as fast as lightning. Wang Lin quickly touched his bag of holding and 2 bells appeared. They collided with the sword energy, creating a sound wave. The 9 rays of sword energy paused for a moment under the effect of the sound wave, but then continued toward Wang Lin. With that pause, the 2 bells shattered and the pieces formed a suit of armor around Wang Lin. He let out a roar and teleported again. This time, he was charging toward Red Butterfly. However, just when he reappeared, the ice giant's fist arrived before him. This punch was much faster than the one before. It landed on Wang Lin's body in almost an instant. Wang Lin's body was sent flying. The 9 rays of sword energy stabbed into his body as he flew through the air. Then the giant flower petal quickly wrapped around him, leaving no opening. Killing intent filled Red Butterfly's eyes and she shouted, Seng Nyo, accept your death. Her left hand formed a seal and pointed at the petal. Soon, sounds of explosions came from within the petal. However, just at this moment, a ray of black energy leaked out from the flower petal. Red Butterfly's expression changed when a huge ray of black sword energy that felt like it could destroy the world came out from within the petal. The petal was split in half, and Wang Lin slowly walked out. The ribbon that was tying his hair had broken. His hair flowed in the air without any wind, and his eyes were filled with intense coldness. He looked at Red Butterfly like he was looking at a dead person. There were many cracks on his armor, and behind him the 9 rays of sword energy all shattered. Wang Lin's voice was low as he slowly said, "Red Butterfly, the battle has just started. What happened just now was only a warm-up." Red Butterfly stared at Wang Lin and pointed at the rose with 6 remaining petals. She was about to use a spell. "Red Butterfly, look at this." Wang Lin revealed an evil smile as he took out a cocoon-like stone that had many Dao symbols on it. Wang Lin's right hand hit it, and the symbols on it began to glow. Red Butterfly's face became pale as a small amount of black gas emerged from her forehead. She shouted, "Seng Nyo, what is that?" "It's just an arm." Wang Lin's expression remained the same as he hit the stone. Pieces of rocks fell off, revealing a dark and withered arm. Holding the arm in his hand, he let out an evil smile. "Red Butterfly, is this arm familiar to you?" Red Butterfly's body trembled as she stared at the arm. She then suddenly turned toward Wang Lin. The coldness in her eyes had reached its limit. "Seng Nyo, you villain." Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he laughed out loud. Then his eyes suddenly darkened and said, "I'm a villain. Back in the celestial realm, there was no hatred between us. I had never messed with you. Yet you tried to kill me multiple times. Even now, I still don't know why you wanted to kill me. Why can't I resist if you tried to kill me?" Red Butterfly's face was gloomy. Without any hesitation, she pointed at the rose and all 6 petals scattered. Wang Lin let out a snort. Without any hesitation, he slapped his bag of holding and a black flag appeared in his hand. This was the flag that was only missing one restriction to summon divine retribution lightning. His left hand moved before him. A restriction appeared and he placed it on the flag. The restriction shook and a blinding light shined from the flag. Red Butterfly's expression changed. Her hand quickly formed seals, and she chanted a very complex spell. The 6 petals quickly flew out, and turned into 6 women wearing red. However, a powerful force was being released from the restriction flag. This force pushed everything away. Wang Lin allowed himself to be pushed away, and let the restriction flag float in the sky. As for the 6 petals that had turned into 6 women, they were also stopped in their tracks. They were unable to go forward. At this moment, rumbling sounds suddenly came from the sky. Red clouds covered the sky like the heavens were going to collapse. Everyone watching the fight from outside was shocked. The 4 old men sitting in the inner circle all suddenly opened their eyes. Their gazes were locked onto the red clouds. Divine retribution. Gong Suanpa's eyes lit up. 6 returned to 1. Red Butterfly's expression changed as she quickly formed seals with her hand. The 6 women in red quickly fused with Red Butterfly. Behind her, 6 beautiful, red figures appeared. Red clouds covered the sky. Wang Lin sneered as he pointed at the restriction flag. The restriction flag quickly turned into waves of restrictions that shot toward Red Butterfly. Just at this moment, with a huge bang, all of the red clouds gathered and an array of red lightning descended. Its target was exactly where the restrictions were at. Red Butterfly quickly backed up, but Wang Lin had been keeping an eye on her. The moment she moved, he waved the celestial sword and an array of sword energy shot out at her. However, this sword energy wasn't for Red Butterfly. It collided with the descending red lightning. Bang! With a loud bang, the sword energy collapsed. The red lightning paused for a moment before it continued to descend. Using this pause, Wang Lin shouted, "Restriction flag, scatter." The restriction flag suddenly shook as more restriction gas poured out of it. This continued until the restriction flag turned to dust and disappeared. However, the restriction gas that came out arrived before Red Butterfly in almost an instant and hovered around her. Much of the gas had already entered the ice giant's body as well. Although the gas couldn't do any damage, it could act as a beacon for the divine retribution lightning. The giant quickly stomped the ground. Every time it stomped, a lot of restriction gas would dissipate, but there was simply so much gas that it kept on entering the giant's body. Red Butterfly was about to teleport, when her expression suddenly became ugly. The moment divine retribution arrives, all teleports are sealed. Red Butterfly, accept your death. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. At this moment, the red lightning arrived. The moment the restriction gas touched the lightning, it dissipated. The red lightning descended upon Red Butterfly, who was surrounded by restriction gas. Although all of this took a while to explain, it happened in the blink of an eye. Red Butterfly's face was pale, and she clenched her teeth. The moment the red lightning arrived, the 6 figures behind her flew out. Explode. One of the red figures exploded the moment it touched the red lightning, but it was unable to stop the divine retribution lightning. Red Butterfly's voice cracked. Explode. Explode. Bang. 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 The divine retribution lightning pierced through them like they were paper. One figure collapsed, another figure collapsed, and soon all 6 figures had collapsed. However, the power of the red lightning lowered a bit in these series of explosions. Without a word, Red Butterfly sank into the ice giant. The moment she disappeared into it, the red lightning struck the ice giant. The giant suddenly raised its head, and let out a painful roar as many cracks appeared on its body. There was a red line moving within the ice giant. It wasn't attacking the ice giant, but moving to the remaining restriction gas in its body. In addition, there was the ghostly image of a whip that would glow. Every time it glowed, the power of the red lighting would weaken a bit. A pity. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he swung the celestial sword at the giant. He let out a roar as he directed a large ray of sword energy toward the ice giant. The giant opened its mouth and shouted. However, the voice belonged to Red Butterfly. Soul Lasher. Just at this moment, the whip inside the ice giant glowed brightly, flew out from the chest of the giant, and struck Wang Lin. Fast. Too fast. Wang Lin wasn't able to dodge at all. He coughed out blood and his body fell. However, his origin soul was knocked out of his body and flew far away. At this moment, the sword energy landed on the ice giant and its aura weakened a lot. A wound as thick as an arm went through its body. This video will end here.